Now, one of the best ways to read the media, this is what I encourage my subscribers to do, is to go back in time. Go to the old articles. It's absolutely hilarious. You will find nuggets of wisdom that you didn't know existed. Or my utmost favorite is when you see journalists defend positions that we now know for a fact they weren't true, because time has shown that those positions were abysmal. And the journalists are defending them with a level of arrogance, with a level of disdain for the critics. And that exposes what the mainstream media really is. But more importantly, what this argument does, it exposes that it's not due to lack of knowledge that certain decisions were made. It's due to malice. Because we're going to see here that back in 2007, Harvard actually made a study on diversity, whatever that is, and they found out that the effects are actually negative. And despite all that, despite the fact that the study was done by a prestigious university, despite the fact that the study was published in the New York Times and many other prestigious journals, it was pushed anyway. So, what conclusions can we drag from that? If it was common knowledge at the time and it was pushed not by convincing people, but by instituting political correctness, cancel culture, going after critics, getting people fired that disagree. And they knew that this is a negative thing to do, as the study shows. And so, again, what conclusions can we drag from this? So apparently, a massive new study based on detailed interviews of nearly 30,000 people across America has concluded the opposite. That diversity is not a civic strength. And what's interesting is that if you look at the current world now in 2025, you will realize that no one is even saying diversity is our strength anymore because it's laughable. Now, I want people to understand what we mean by diversity, right? Because it's a Mott and Bailey tactic. They say one thing and they mean another, and when you criticize them, they assume you mean the opposite thing. The initial concept was that diversity of ideas is a good thing, right? And in a way, it makes sense. If you have a problem, and you get a young person and an elderly person and a person from an urban area and a person from a rural area, people that have different life experiences, different mindsets, and you get all of them to tackle the problem, then you're going to have a wide array of solutions. And then you can pick and choose which solution you think is best, right? That's what diversity was initially advocated as. A diverse group of people have different ideas. But what they did is instead of actually going for a diverse group of people, they went for different races, right? So they automatically assumed, which by the way, they would also consider that pointing this out is racist, but they automatically assume that just because a person is of a different skin color, they have a completely different level of experience. And so the thing moved from let's try to find different opinions and different ideas in order to solve problems, to let's just look at the races, the genome of people at a company, and force that company to hire people of different races. Even though, let's say you have a company that started by 5 white people in a garage, because they're in the same neighborhood, they want to make a video gaming company, they get together, they make their own company. Now, the critics are saying, no, you are racist, because you didn't hire anyone that's of a different race. And apparently, that mindset wasn't applied if, let's say 5 black people got together and started their own company. Right? It was only applied unilaterally. In fact, I remember the Washington Post released a picture with only black women, and they said this is the most diverse picture, right? And so that's what they were meaning when they said diversity. Enforced diversity is what they were talking about. It wasn't okay, someone has a company, this black dude came up, he's really good at what he does, so they hired him. No. It's what is the quota, the percentages, the obsession with filling percentages as a way to prove that you're not a racist. If you're making a historical movie that takes place in Norway in 1200, it's where's the black people? Where's the percentages? If you have a neighborhood, where's my percentage of black people in that neighborhood? That's how they meant diversity, right? And so this study from 2007 is saying that, look, in Harvard, back in the day, they asked 30,000 people across America, and they concluded the opposite, that diversity is not a strength. They found that the greater the diversity in a community, the fewer people vote, and the less likely they volunteer, the less they give to charity and work on community projects. And so I want you to imagine, if you're a left-leaning politician that's already in power, right? You don't want more people to vote. More people to vote means that they're going to vote for the other guy. Like, you want what happened last election to keep happening, right? You're the establishment. You want to convince people that voting doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's a seat, right? Like, it's a chair. You're getting paid. You're getting a lot of power. You don't want to lose that. You don't want another chucklehead to take your seat. And so your interest is to make sure that what happened previous elections will happen these elections, right? So if you have a community that is more diverse and the study shows that fewer people are likely to vote, well, then you want more diversity, right? If you're giving welfare to people, you don't want charity, you don't want something else to compete with your monopoly. You want diversity because you don't want people to start giving charity, right? You want people to rely on the government. You don't want people to volunteer. That, again, you are the government. You want to be the one that comes up there and does stuff, usually performative. In the most diverse communities, neighbors trust one another about half as much as they do in the most homogeneous settings. The study that the largest ever on civic engagement in America found that virtually all measures of civic health are lower in more diverse settings. Now take into account, this is written in 2007 in the New York Times, right? Imagine if they would have wrote this in 2020 during the BLM riots. Even now, right? Like, even now, it would be viewed as the person who wrote this should be fired, right? Like, there would be people that would be out for blood trying to cancel the journalist that wrote this article or the people at Harvard that ran the study. The study comes at a time when the future of America melting pot is in the focus of intense political debate, from immigration to race-based admission to schools, and it poses challenges to advocates on all sides of the issue. The study is already being cited by some conservatives as proof of the harm large-scale immigration. Again, I want to point out, like, if you have a community and immigration happens naturally, that's one thing. But when immigration is forced through policy, like the politicians demand it and they crave it, well, you gotta wonder, like, do they crave it because they're genuinely empathetic or compassionate, or because they're actually interested in making sure that, as it says here, fewer people vote, less people give to charity, less people work on community projects, less people volunteer? Which one is it? Again, like, they know this information. It was published in the New York Times. It was it was found by Harvard. Like, this is not some esoteric knowledge, and it was all over the internet at the time, many other publications. Listen to this. The extent of the effect is shocking. The study comes at a time when blah, blah, blah. We can't ignore these findings, says Ali Noorani, executive director of the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition. The big question we have to ask ourselves is, what do we do with it? What are the next steps? The study is part of a fascinating new portrait of diversity emerging from recent scholarship. Diversity, it shows, makes us uncomfortable. But discomfort, it turns out, it's always a bad thing. Unease with different helps explain why teams of engineers from different cultures may be ideally suited to solve a vexing problem. Culture clashes can produce a dynamic give and take, generating a solution that many have eluded to a group of people with similar backgrounds. This was actually shown not to be true, right? Like, just because you have, like, different engineers of different culture doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. For instance, let's say you have engineers from a very meritocratic culture, and this culture rewards excellence. They don't care about anything else. They only care about your performance. And then you have engineers that are from a nepotistic culture, and the only thing they care about is, like, who's your father? Who do you know? How did you get the job, right? Like, who recommended you? That's the only thing they care about, right? Imagine getting these two people to work together. It's like, obviously, the meritocratic engineers are going to start wondering, it's like, why do I have to put so much effort? Because now they're placed to work with other people that didn't got in because of merit, but they got in because of connections. And so the merit-based engineers are going to be like, look, I'm giving my 120% here, but my colleague, he's doing half the job that I am doing because he managed to get in through the back door. He knew the boss. And so if he knew the boss and now he's performing at 50%, why should I work at the 120? Right? So like the idea of getting people from different cultures is not always a good thing. Like, for instance, if you get people from a leftist culture that are hyper-obsessed with appearances and with political correctness, and your actions don't matter, but what you say in public and how you're perceived in public is more important. And then you get a chucklehead like me that generally doesn't give a shit about appearances, but, like, I'm all about action. Like, I will show up on time, I will do my job, I will perform to the best of my abilities, and I go home. I don't go there to make friends, I don't give a shit about what you think about me. I'm just going there and do my job, right? Well, what do you think will happen? Well, the people that are obsessed with appearances, they will despise me. Even if I do a better job than them, even if I work better than them, right? And so, like, the people at Harvard knew this. Like, this is not something that's even debatable. It's like, no, in the Bible, and I hate as an atheist to talk about the Bible, but, like, some of the stories there were written by people that were thousands of years older than us, right? And if people from thousands of years that were older than us got it, and they understood humanity much better than people today, what does that get to say? And what I'm talking about is the Tower of Babel, right? Like, that's a story in the Bible. It doesn't matter if you're an atheist or a Christian. Like, it's still written by someone. And that story is about, like, people trying to work together, right? Like, forming a co-op in order to build a magical middle finger that goes to the heaven. And what does God do? He manages to make them talk different languages, basically like have different cultures, right? And all of a sudden, the tower doesn't get to be made. Like even they understood, like back then, it's like if people aren't on the same wavelength, then they're not going to collaborate. And so the solution is the uniculture. Like enforce the same culture on everyone, and you will have, like even if it's a weaker culture, even if it's like, let's say, a nepotistic culture or whatever, but you will still get better results than having like all the cultures under the same umbrella that are constantly antagonizing each other and fighting with each other. Because again, like Harvard showed on this study done with 30,000 people, which was published in New York Times, that this is the case. Let me know what you guys think though, and as usual, I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.